we're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort. And China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, you know, I come back with that video just to make you think. And we had crypto CEOs at the U.S. Housing Committee of Financial Services. And who did we have? That's right, Brian Brooks. We know what he was a part of. One West with Steve Mnuchin, connected to who? George Soros. That's right, guys, and the big banks. And then, of course, we have Jeremy, which is connected to Goldman Sachs. And we know Brian Brooks and Jeremy work together on USDC. And, guys, this was truly a movie. It was all scripted. Now, we have Brian Brooks speaking of the United States behind the emerging markets. Are we behind, guys? No, I proved it time and time again. We funded all of the technology. My Society 5.0 videos show us speaking in San Francisco, bringing the Japanese in. That's correct, guys. Now we have Brian Brooks also speaking of automation. The algorithms replacing the people. Wouldn't you rather have the algorithm making the decision instead of the people? Remember, guys, the whole plan is to take people out of the economy and replace them with robots, algorithms, and drones. And then we also had the congressman state that big banks in Wall Street are not behind crypto. When I prove it every single video that the big banks in the Wall Street are funding this whole project. But guys, what do we not hear? That's right, the fourth industrial revolution, because that's what they're building. Remember, when we go through Congress, it's called the Hegelian dialectic. We're going to have some people for it. We're going to have some people against it. But the New World Order is going to sway you to their direction. Stable coins are going to allow the Fed, the central banks, the New World Order to stay in control. But is the United States going to lose its world reserve currency? Of course it is. The United States used oil and military to gain the power. But now, where is all this power at now? That's right, China. Who has the biggest military? China. Who manufactures everything? China. Who has all the money, guys? That's right, China. The new empire is going to rise. And what's going to happen to America, to Babylon? That's right, it's going to fall. Because we know, when it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Dollars, as Ranking Member McHenry just said, how do we ensure the U.S. dollar remains the reserve currency?
Well, Mr. Lukemeyer, it's terrific to see you again, and I'd give you a couple of thoughts on that important question. One is, if we start with stable coins before we talk about other crypto assets, I've said for a long time that the secular reduction in dollar holdings as a percentage of global central bank holdings is alarming. And this has been going on for more than 10 years at this point. So dollars as a share of the European Central Bank, the Japanese Central Bank, et cetera, has shrunk from 80+% to more like 60+% in a short amount of time. What that tells me is that in the future, with the rise of China and other major economies, the US dollar can't take its primacy for granted, and we need to start thinking about competing on utility, on features, not just based on a post-World War II monetary system that we could take for granted for the last 2 generations. And that's one of the reasons that I've been such a supporter of internet-enabled dollars, which allow us to compete on features, not only on history. I think that's really critically important. The second thing I would tell you is, as we enter year 11 or 12 of a highly inflationary environment, after all, we've been printing enormous numbers of new dollars since the financial crisis, there will come a time, gradually then suddenly, when the attractiveness of the dollar relative to other currencies could change. One of the benefits of the crypto economy is that it creates some counter incentives on the part of the Fed to do that kind of policy, because people will flee to other kinds of assets. And that sort of market competition is something that I think will ultimately shore up our monetary policy and keep the dollar where it rightfully ought to be, which is as the dominant reserve currency it's been for all of our lives.
We lose that position where our economy, our whole country, our way of life is at risk. Mr. Allaire, you made a comment in your testimony with regards to promoting the dollar as a primary currency. I assume you've got a thought on this as well.
Thank you, Congressman. Absolutely. I think, as I introduced in my initial remarks, we're at a really interesting moment in time. We're seeing this infrastructure layer, these blockchains, proliferate globally at incredible speed. It seems likely to us that the ability to access and interact with these blockchain networks will reach billions of users over the next 2 to 3 years. And the question is, in that time frame, will the United States support the dollar and digital dollars in the form of stablecoins, because they're in the market and operational today, to help the United States dollar be the competitive currency of the internet? I think that's the opportunity. I think it's in front of us right now, and it's one of the reasons why we're so focused on this as a national economic, and not just a national economic priority, a national security priority, because clearly, if this is the new economic infrastructure of the internet, we want the dollar to play a critical and strategic role. And partnering closely with private companies and using open internet technologies becomes a way for the United States to compete versus states that are seeking to nationalize that infrastructure, operate it themselves in a surveillance-oriented model.
Well, it's interesting that you were talking a while ago. I think Ms. Velasquez asked questions about reserves, and I think you were talking about basically a one-to-one amount of backing of your coin, of your asset with U.S. Treasuries. So you're looking, I think, at the value of your that you're backing up your digital coin with is basically the full faith and trust of the United States government. Right? Would that be correct?
That is exactly correct, and I think in many respects, the assets that back these dollar digital currencies are in many ways far safer than the dollars in a bank account, because dollars in a bank account, as we know, are fractionally reserved and lent out. So this is
I don't interrupt, but I got one quick question from Mr. Brooks with regards to, you talked about a minute ago with owner controls the network. We had Mr. Zuckerberg in here when he was trying to talk about his Libra, and the control of that, the value of it was going to be with a commission. My concern is who controls the internet. We've seen Twitter, we've seen Instagram, we've seen Facebook control people on their platforms. How concerned are you about outside forces controlling the platform on which the digital dollar is traded?
Well, Mr. Lukemeyer, I'll do you one better on your hypothetical, which is we've now seen major banks deplatforming both industries and individual customers for not sharing the right point of view. So these are scary ideas. The point of crypto is to have true decentralization, and the projects that succeed will be the projects that achieve that. Bitcoin succeeded because there are literally millions of participants in the node network, and so there is no CEO of Twitter to deplatform you. There's no CEO of JP Morgan to take away your credit card. It's user controlled. Some of these won't achieve that. They'll be consigned to the ash heap of history, I predict.
Thank you very much. I'll yield back.
There are others who are going to be able to enter that space, and that they are not being blocked out, and that there is an artificial barrier to entry that is going to allow others to do, frankly, what you all did, which was be innovative and supply a product to people who are looking for that product. I'm going to have to move really quickly. I'm going to go to Mr. Brooks on a couple of things. Would you describe why establishing these clear rules of the road is important? before we an important step before we add additional regulation and consider that regulation?
Well, Mr. Huizenga, it's good to see you again. I think the most important reason of many is international competitiveness. So other countries make this easier. Okay, let me just make clear. Other companies make this easier, other countries. I just came yesterday from the Middle East, where in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, they have super clear derivatives regulations, super clear ETF regulation. They're trying to lure Americans over there to build these products, and they're moving there.
So how are they viewing these crypto assets differently than traditional assets? I mean, what Rubicon have they crossed that we haven't? And why is it important to think about digital assets differently?
Well, I think one of the things that they've figured out is that crypto actually is less fundamentally different than equities and debt than you think it is. It's a risk-on asset that people want to invest in. They want to invest in it in Canada, so Canada builds a regime for it. They want to do it in Germany. We're the last country standing that hasn't figured that out. It's a risk-on asset that people want exposure to as part of asset diversification.
As opposed to traditional assets.
Correct.
Okay. I've got a minute left here. So, Ms. Haas, if you indicated in your testimony that, quote, every asset listed on Coinbase platform is subject to rigorous legal compliance and security review, close quote. Could you provide us specific details on what Coinbase's process has been to be able to make that type of statement?
Thank you for the question. Yes, so specifically for the legal review, we assess each asset under the Howey test, where
the line is super clear. There are some products that are legal in other countries and are just not legal here. So I take some of the investment products we've talked about earlier today, for example, exchange-traded funds. One of the things that makes crypto risky is that consumers may not understand the difference between one token and another token, and so they may want to diversify, much as I own an S&P 500 mutual fund. We don't allow that in the United States. We do allow it in Canada. We allow it in Germany, Singapore, Portugal, and a number of other places. So if you're a developer of those products, there's no fuzzy line. It's super clear. You can't do that here, so you have to go abroad. Okay. There are some other places.
Can you say why we can't do that here?
Sure. It's because the Securities and Exchange Commission has consistently refused to approve products that other G20 nations have approved.
So we're behind the curve.
Unquestionably.
Congresswoman, I think financial inclusion is a critical design goal for many of us, and certainly as we think about USDC, today USDC as a payment technology for dollars on the internet enables users to transfer dollars in a fraction of a second with a transaction cost that can be as low as a 20th of a penny, and with the throughput of the Visa network. That's a benefit that can be brought to individuals, and I'd like to really emphasize something for the committee, which is one of the most powerful things about this technology is that it is the open internet. Just like anyone can have an email account or a text message or access the internet, this is an open financial system. And when you combine those kinds of access efficiency and that openness, it creates an opportunity for anyone with a mobile device anywhere in the world to seamlessly exchange value with one another.
Great, thank you.
Some of the objections, which I believe demonstrate a complete and utter misunderstanding of what we're even doing here today. One contention is that the vibe of crypto is a stick-it-to-the-man vibe, but in actuality it's dominated and controlled by big tech and Wall Street. While the culture may be somewhat accurately described, the notion that a handful of big tech leaders and Wall Street banks somehow created and now control crypto is absurd on its face. And frankly, anyone who would make such a claim, I believe, should be ignored on this topic.
Back to the criticisms that you were just recounting, the only part of that I heard was hip. I'm going with hip. The rest of it, we can come to. But in terms of the problems being solved, I think the first issue is the biggest critics of cryptocurrency have been the biggest banks. Those are the people who are the most concerned about the entry of stablecoins into the payment system, about the ability of crypto assets to build networks that are away from the clearinghouse. Those are the biggest critics. And so I think that tells you a lot of what you need to know. And the reason is because the way that Web3 solves a lot of problems, it's really twofold. First of all, it eliminates the toll collector role of traditional banks and traditional broker-dealers. The main thing that they do is they employ large numbers of human beings maintaining ledgers of account and allocating credit for a fee. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies do that without human beings and with no fee. And the elimination of minimum account balance fees the $25 wire transfer fee that your bank charges to give you 3 days to send money abroad, those are gone. That's what's so important. But the last part is it unlocks value that traditional economic structures don't unlock. The creator economy, play to earn in the gaming system. Those don't exist.
The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. You know, I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.